All right, everybody. Hello and welcome to another session of Control+M Presents. Thanks for joining us today. As a reminder, everybody is on mute. We're recording this session, so when Q&A time comes around at the end of Rebecca's presentation, you'll need to remember to unmute yourselves. Today's topic is subcontracting, also known as outside services or managing supplier-delivered work on your manufactured products. Our Rebecca Schmidt will be giving this presentation. She rejoined us a few months back, and we couldn't be more delighted to have her engineering mindset, attention to detail, and passion for Plex on our team. So without any further ado, Rebecca, take it away.
Thanks, Patty. And you guys can see my Control+M Present screen, correct?
Yep, we can.
All right, perfect. So hi, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rebecca Schmidt, and I'll be talking about subcontract best practices today. To give a little history of myself, I've been involved with ERP implementations for the last 13 years, 11 and a half of those being exclusively with Plex. So I may be newer to the Control+M team, but I am not new to the ERP or Plex world. I have an extensive history of traveling the world for work and pleasure, of which I enjoy both very much, along with some side hobbies like golfing, spending time with my 2 English bulldogs, running, and of course, fishing with my husband and son in our backyard. Now that you know more about me, let's get into today's topic agenda. For our agenda this afternoon, we will be walking through some reasons to use the subcontract functionality in Plex, along with setup best practices, and go over some explanations followed by a demo. So what is subcontract in Plex, and when should it be used? Best practice would be to use subcontract in Plex when you have any outside processing steps in your manufacturing process that need to be tracked and managed. So this allows for your inventory to be tracked and managed even when it's not at your actual physical facility. There is functionality that allows for drop shipping from subcontractor directly to the customer. And additionally, there is functionality that allows for drop shipping from subcontractor to subcontractor if you have that process required. One of the top reasons to use the subcontract module in Plex is to get real-time inventory accuracy. We have heard from many customers they spend so much time on the phone with subcontractors asking for what parts are where, how many parts are where, and that this can be an incredibly frustrating process and very time-consuming. So within Plex, inventory is going to show you exactly where those parts are, what part numbers, and what quantities. So if you are ready to implement any outside processing like subcontract, the Control+M team is here to help. Starting with subcontract shipping. So requirements that allow for the subcontract shipping process to function properly are the supplier must be set up with the supplier type of subcontractor flagged. Just note that adding this will add a location in Plex of that supplier, but this is so when inventory is at the subcontractor, the location will show accordingly. The operation on the parts process routing has to have an operation type that has subcontract checked, and there must be a purchase order per subcontract supplier. The purchase order has to have the subcontract flagged in the receiving method section. And for the standard subcontract processing, this does have to be sent out through the send to subcontract screen. For receiving, We have some standard subcontract receiving methods, and they include the following. FIFO, first in, first out. We would want to utilize this receiving method when parts that get returned are in multiple packages or different quantity containers than used to ship out to the subcontractor. Bin for bin, we would want to utilize this option when the same shipped and received quantities match. Please note that this function is not recommended if the part number changes while at the subcontractor. Master units, we would want to utilize this option when containers get sent out to the subcontractor as a master unit and will be received back in as a master unit. And finally, split bins. We would want to use this function when quantities of a single shipped container gets received back in under multiple containers. Under receiving and retiring containers, in the instance where you wouldn't be receiving in the same quantity, so it would be less than anticipated, we would want to be using the under receiving function. And this can be done right from the receive screen in the blue action bar. And this is the same for retiring containers function. It will be right in that blue action bar. For subcontract scrap, when you are receiving in, you are able to set the status to scrap in case items need to have that scrap status. This would allow for a rejection process to start if you have that setup turned on in your PCN. Or you can receive them in fully under the OK or hold status and later scrap them if a sort needs to happen. This is fully dependent on how your internal scrap process works at your facility. And using check sheets, we can force check sheets when receiving in items from the subcontractor, utilizing the finalize feature on the receive from subcontract screen. Parts with a required check sheet will not appear as available or usable inventory until that check is completed. For troubleshooting, some of the most often subcontract topics that need troubleshooting are things like containers not showing up on the send to subcontract screen. If this is the case, we would want to check and make sure the container status is set to OK and allow for production. We would want to make sure the container is at the prior operation to sending out for subcontract. And make sure the job has scheduled the subcontract operation or operations. If the container is not showing up on the receive from subcontract screen, we would want to make sure the container was sent out using the send to subcontract screen, and we would verify this in send to subcontract history. And make sure the container location hasn't been updated since sending to subcontract, maybe by mistake. If bill of material parts are missing from the send to subcontract screen, we would want to check the bill of material container and make sure that it has to have that process routing operation prior to send to subcontract. So it would be at that prior operation. And the bill of material item container status must be set to OK and flagged for allow production. There are some bin for bin known issues. When receiving bin for bin through subcontract, the part key gets updated, which then in turn links the container part to other later on processes. And this could cause issues at part specifications and lot traceability. And if this is selected as the receive mode on the receive from subcontract screen, you will see a warning that will appear. And then if there are additional bill of material items in the same operation, these do not get depleted from the subcontractor with bin for bin. Some best practices, we have the drop ship option. In case you have parts that go directly from one subcontractor to the next, you are able to drop ship directly to that second subcontractor. And you could even set location defaults when using the receive from subcontract screen to show that it's at that second or third subcontractor drop shipped. It allows for maintaining FIFO order within your inventory. Just remember, containers must be shipped out using the send to subcontract screen in order to be able to receive them back in. And finally, inventory units cannot change throughout the process. So now I'm going to go into a live demo. And the first thing we're going to look at here, the first step of this, we want to check out the suppliers. So I'm going to navigate to the supplier screen. And I want to filter on the type. So the type here, I want to filter on the outside processing suppliers that we have, and I'm going to say okay and search. So here we have about 6 suppliers, and the 2 that we're going to focus on today are heat treat and outside processor. If I drill into the first one, that's heat treat. We're going to notice the main difference here is the supplier type, and the supplier type is set to outside processor, outside processing. So I want to see what's different about this supplier type. I'm going to go up to the gears, go up to our setup table, and we're looking for supplier type. We have that right up here. And it was outside processing that we want to take a look at. So here in the setup table, we can see the supplier type of outside processing has subcontractor flagged. So that's one critical piece to making this work. So heat treat supplier is set, and we're just going to validate for our second outside processor that this supplier type is also set to outside processing, and it is. The next part of our setup, we are going to navigate to the part. I'm just going to click in the parts. My part number that I have created for this is called RS Subcon part. So I'm going to drill in. And as far as the part setup, there isn't anything too drastically different on this part. It really is going to be on the process routing. So let's go right into the process routing tab and take a look at what operations we have set up for this part. So I have 4 operations. Op 10 is cut, that's in-house at Work Center 55. Op 20 is e-coat sub, and our supplier here is outside processor. Op 30 is heat, and the supplier is heat treat. And then Op 40, we have pack. And again, that's in-house and at the Work Center of package. So I want to go into this operation and see what makes it different. Make sure our setup is complete. So we'll notice here we have two different options here, but the first one we want to focus on really is the operation code. So we have ecoat sub. If I want to look at what flags are on that, I'm going to navigate to a screen called operations. I'm just going to do a wide open search, find my ecoat sub. And here we can see there really isn't anything too noteworthy about this other than the operation type. This operation type is external. So I want to see what is in the operation type next. I'm going to go to the gears, go to setup table links, and we're looking for operation type. Second one down. Let's just double check. We're looking for external. So third one down, we have external. And we can see what's really making a difference here is subcontract is flagged. So we want to make sure that that is on and flagged for any subcontract operation that we might want to use. So if I go back here, this is back to the process routing. The only other step that needs to happen in the process routing for any subcontract operations is approved suppliers. So if I click into approved suppliers, we can see I have outside processor set as our subcontract supplier. And we already validated that that setup was correct for the supplier. I'm going to back out here and let's validate for our previous operation. So we're going to look at heat, drill in here, and we have operation code of heat. And I want to look at that here. So I'm going to back out because we're looking for the operation code of heat. And here it is. I'm going to click on that. And we can see we have that operation type of external. If I wanted to double check that operation type of external again, I could go back into the operation type setup table. Here again, we have external, subcontract is flagged. And again, let's go up to our approved suppliers back in the process routing. Make sure we have an approved supplier set that is subcontract, and we have heat treat, which we already validated. So I'm going to hit back. That way we can have a full visual of our process routing for this part. And the next thing I'm going to do here is I'm going to show an option of having a check sheet. So if you're receiving parts in from your subcontractor and say you have a receiving check, a visual check or anything that needs to be completed prior to finalizing, I want to show that option. So here I'm going to go to Control+M. Let me get rid of that tab just so we don't have too many going on. I'm going to say show all filters, and I want my RS subcon part. So here we can see we have control plan 30. I'm going to drill into that, and we can see on op 30 for the operation of heat, we have a receiving check. So if I click on that, go to view inspection step, we're going to see we have the specification here. And if I wanted to drill in one more level, I'll be able to then see the specification. I'm going to drill into that specification, hit search. And we can see it's really just a receiving check. It's an attribute, and I just said it does part pass visual inspection. So just a quick, simple visual receiving check that we have set. And the next step of the process would be making sure we have our purchase order set. So I'm going to navigate to the purchase order screen. And here I'm going to filter on the PO type of subcontract. I'm going to say okay, and I'm going to say issued by myself because there's a few in here. So we have these suppliers that look familiar, heat treat outside processor. So we have PO 94, PO 95. Let's drill in and see what makes these any different than a regular purchase order. So we'll notice right away under the status section, we have the type of subcontract selected. So we want to figure out what is different about that PO type. So I'm going to duplicate my tab here. I'm going to go into purchase order types. Hit search. And we just want to validate that the subcontract PO type has everything flagged. And it's really just one flag that we're looking for. I'm going to scroll down here in the receiving method, and we want to make sure that this subcontract flag is checked. So that purchase order is set. We want to make sure it's on order, of course. Can't do anything if it's not on order. Line item list. Let's make sure our part is set up there. RS subcon part. We have operation ecoat sub. We have some releases in there, so that's great. That first one is set. Let's back out to 95 for heat treat. And again, on the heat treat, we can see the type is set to subcontract, and that has all the flags that it needs. It's set to on order. We go to line item list, make sure we have that RS subcon part. Here it is, operation of heat. We have some open releases. That's perfect. Back out there, get rid of this additional screen. The next step to this is we are going to schedule our job. And I'm just going to go into the job manager. And part number RS subcon. Here we have our job 234 for RS subcon part. I'm just going to click in there. We're going to go into the job routing. And here what we're really checking for is in the routing that we have this subcontract operations scheduled. So if I scroll down, we have up 10, 20, 30, 40 for the ecoat sub, and for heat, we have subcon flagged, which is exactly what we're looking for. And then we have the supplier name. So those have been scheduled, which is everything we need. If we go back to the process routing, we can see the first bill of material we're going to need to actually run this through the system is going to be the 0.25 steel plate. So the next place I'm going to go is the control panel. We're actually going to start making this. So we are in work center of 55, which is exactly where we want to be. The setup, I already have loaded my job 234 that I created. I have myself clocked in. We are in work center status of production, and I'm going to go record production. So we can see here on this job, I've already produced 34 of the 500 pieces that I need to make. And we're going to just make some more to see how this process is going to work. I have my source loaded, but in case we wanted to check in here, see what we have of this 0.25 steel plate. So we still have a quantity of 466, which is great. And if I ever needed more, we have some additional down here. But we have enough for this, so it's good. I'm just going to close out. We're going to start a new container. For this example, I'm going to say that we have produced 7 pieces. Record production. Going to say that container's full with just those 7 pieces. And I'm going to duplicate my tab because I want to have 3 open for this. The next step of this, if we go back and look at the process routing, we just did op 10, that was cut. Our next one is going to be sending to outside processor for the ecoat sub. So I'm going to navigate to send to subcontract. I'm going to filter on my part number of RS subcon part. And here is my serial number that I just generated, the 958. I'm going to select this part. and say we're ready to ship it out to the subcontractor and we need our paperwork. So I'm going to create the shipper. When we do that, we have the ship to information over on the top left side. We have the shipper detail on the top right side. You'll notice the PO field is mandatory. So if you did not have a purchase order set up, it will not allow you to send out along with a default carrier. So this is our container information. It's the 7 pieces. I'm going to say okay. The print manager is going to pop up. Here is our subcontract shipper for our 7 pieces. We would be able to print as needed, get the signatures, all the fun things. I'm going to say okay. And here it's saying that there's no records found. So I don't have anything else that I can send out at this time to the send a subcontract. There is one more screen I want to show as we're going through this process, and that is the inventory screen. I want to show you what this container looks like as we're going through the process. So part number RS subcon. So this is the container that we're looking at. It last went through cut. This is the serial number 958, job 234. The location is currently outside processor because that's where we just sent it. And you can change statuses as it goes through if you wanted to change it to be a different status as it went through the process, but best practice is to have it set to okay. So the next step of our process routing, we can see we went through and did cut, and now it's currently at the E-coat sub. We want it to go to heat next. Say the subcontractor has said to you, it is leaving our facility and it's now going on to heat treat. So to do that, we go to receive from subcontract. We're going to filter on our part number, our S subcon part. And here she is. We have our 7 pieces. I'm going to select that, hit receive. It's going to give us the container information. It shows us our part information. If we scroll down, it's going to ask for an incoming supplier shipper number. Here I am going to use RS test 3 because I've already done a few tests and I don't want that same data. Receive date, next operation, PO number, location. So something that's very important that I have noted here, this location auto defaulted. And the reason it did that is in the process routing, if I flip back real quick, I set the location to be heat treat. So that way it would automatically populate that and I wouldn't have to worry about remembering the name or anything like that. But you could always leave it blank if you wanted to. Status, we're going to say status is okay. If you had any notes you wanted to enter in. And then just for the sake of today's test, we're just going to use split bins. We're going to check this for the container because this is what we want to receive. This is what's been moved from the first subcontractor to the next. We're going to say there's been a full 7 pieces. And we are going to say receive. The record has been updated. And I'm going to get my second subcontract shipper because now this is going to heat treat. So you would be able to print this out, get your signatures, all the things that you would need to do with that. We're going to say okay. And here it is again. So here it's ready for that second, it's ready to be received in from that second subcontractor. So we just did this one. Now it's here at heat and it's ready to be received back in at your facility. So we're back here in receive from subcontract. We're going to highlight our line that we want to receive in, our parts that we want to receive in. We're going to click receive. We're going to use RS test 4. for our incoming supplier shipper number here, a receive date. PO, we're receiving based off of that PO 95. I set this default location to be receiving. And again, I set that in the process routing as a default. Status, we're going to say status is okay. We need to check this box and say that we are receiving in the full quantity of 7. And some of those items that I had talked about earlier, like the retire, if you wanted to view inventory that's there, those options are in this light blue action bar. But I'm going to go ahead and say receive. The record has been updated. And at this point, it takes me to the finalize screen. So this is taking me to the screen because I have set the check sheet. I am saying that we have to have the receiving check completed before the inventory is available to be used. Now I'm going to toggle back to my inventory screen because I want to show what the status does when this happens. It is this serial number right here, the 960. And you can see the status as consignment received. You can name the status as whatever you would want to. This is just the one that is set up in our Control+M PCN currently. It's supposed to be something that can't be utilized yet. Like it's in your location of being in your facility, but it shouldn't be allowed to be used yet because that check has not been completed. So back in our finalized screen, we're going to scroll down. We're going to see the serial number. We have a column that's called has check sheets and it's blank. So we need to do our check sheet. We just click anywhere in this line, go to the top, click add check sheet. And here we are. Receiving check, due parts pass visual inspection. Gauge, this is just visual. We are going to say that this has passed. They do. They look okay. They look great. Click add, check sheet has been added. Last step on the subcon is going to be clicking finalize. So we're going to click on finalize there. Record has been updated. If I go into inventory, we're looking for this bottom line here. I'm going to hit search and we can see that bottom line has changed to now being a status of okay. So it is now usable. Scrolling back to my process routing here, our final operation is pack, and that is that work center package. So back in the control panel, I'm just going to finish this process out. Select my work center of package. I'm going to scroll for a second. Hope I don't make you sick. We already have our job 234 loaded. I am already clocked in and logged in. And then we have our work center status is already set to production. So we're going to go to record. We have one source and that's in red. So we have to load it. Scroll down to see what we have. And the one we just produced was the 960. So I'm going to load the 960 with the quantity of 7. That stoplight is going to turn to green. Once it refreshes, there it goes. And we're just going to stick with the same number the whole way through this test. 7 and record production. So now the process has officially been completed. You can ship the product, you can store it if you're not ready to ship it out quite yet. But that is everything that I was planning on showing today for the subcontract process. Let's go back to this real fast. Sorry, I'm going to scroll through. And are there any questions on anything that I have covered so far today?
Rebecca, I'm just going to add a few points to this. One of the troubleshooting things that you mentioned was accidental changes to the inventory container while it's at the subcon. And we recommend that there's a setting out there. It's called Inventory at Subcontract Update Allow. And I'll put that in the chat. We recommend that that's always disabled. The Plex idea here is if you can't see that container, you shouldn't be making changes to it. So this will prevent changes like a manual location change, a quantity change, a status that would stop you from being able to receive. If you do have to change something on a container that's at a subcontract, there's two ways to do it. Number one, unship the container, make the changes and reship it. Or number two, receive it as per usual and make the change after. If the change is due to quantity, I honestly recommend unshipping, editing, and reshipping it out so that when you receive, you'll have an accurate AP record. And I also did see a few comments about pre-created releases in the chat, Rebecca. So would you mind going out to back to Plex and bringing up your purchase order type while I go through this? So under the receive area, there's a little checkbox that says use existing release. And if you check that, it means that you can't receive until somebody actually puts a release out there. When it's unchecked, it means that Plex will create the release for you upon receipt. So if you send out 1,000, you don't have to create a release for 1,000. But when you receive your 999 pieces in, Plex is going to go to that PO, automatically create a release for 990 pieces, receive against it, and mark that received. So that was another question that was in the chat. Jim Schatzberger asked if there's a way to add a due date on the paperwork for the outside processing. So Rebecca, if you know the answer to that, otherwise I said to Jim, I don't know the answer to that off the top of my head, but we can look it up and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, I would want to look that up just to verify. There are quite a few different configuration settings, so I would be optimistic in that might be possible, but I would need to just double check to get you a 100% answer.
And I would also say too, to Rebecca's defense here too, there's so many ways to set up subcontractors. You can even force Plex to have a job in the system and then only have like a PO per job or a PO line per job. So it can get pretty intense. Anna asked if anyone uses the subcontract job dispatch screen, and Michelle asked if anyone uses the send to subcontract planning report. I've seen people use both. I think, as I recall, the send to subcontract planning report allows you to create your POs right from it. Rebecca, can you do a menu search for send to sub? I'm not sure if it's turned on. Yeah, you might have to go to the reports, but we can get back to you on that. Michelle, maybe we could do a deeper dive on subcontracting to cover SRP, subcontract job dispatch, and getting that job configuration in there. So, Josh asked the question, do you have parts that are getting subcontractor at lower levels that wouldn't be seeing customer demand, just job demand? Absolutely, we've seen that work as well. Oh, and Bob just asked about that setting, and I see I have not copied it into the chat yet. Inventory at subcontract allow. So what I'll do, Rebecca, is I'm going to go through and put together a list of all the questions that we had today, and then Luke, I'll get to your question in just a minute. Then Luke, I'll make a list of everyone's questions today, and then I'll put them actually in the description for the video when I pump it up to YouTube, and we'll have answers there. Luke asked, anyone else having trouble with the supplier return screen in subcontract? We cannot select any POs that are subcontract to initiate a supplier return. It's been sent to Plex and is in development. So Luke, are you talking about a subcontracted process where we have to go back and do, like, for example, reheat treat or re-chrome plate or re-sump strip and redo? That's it. Okay. Tell you what, it seems to me, Rebecca, that we should have advanced subcontracting session. So maybe we'll sign you up for that. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds great.
All right, we'll do that. Let's go back to the slide deck here and talk about our next session. And Annie said we run returns through the rejection module. Yep, I do that too, Annie. And sometimes you have to have a different PO. There's lots of dicey ways to do it, but I think subcon returns would be a great topic to talk about. So let's talk about our next session. Rebecca, great job. I really appreciate the effort that you put into this. Our next session is going to be on tooling. There's a lot that can be done with tooling, and you can manage tooling very, very simply. For example, you can call an entire die set a tool and manage it as a single unit, or you can get down to tool assemblies with tool details, right down to the punches, etc. Our Justina Walker is going to be going over these different methods, why you might select one over another, how to integrate tooling to control panel, and how to use tool maintenance. So thanks again, everyone, for joining us. We know how valuable your time is, and we really appreciate you spending it with us. I'll be processing and uploading this video to our YouTube channel this afternoon. And Michael, I know you're on the call. Please add advanced subcontracting to our Control+M list. There's over 80 videos of training content out there. It's available to you. If you like what you see, give us a thumbs up and spread the word. Again, these sessions are no cost, no obligation. We're not going to call you and try to get you to, drum up business for us or anything like that. We just want the entire Plex community to be stronger, because we think the stronger Plex is, the stronger we'll all be. So have a great day, everybody. Thanks for joining us. And Rebecca, once again, terrific job as always.
Thank you so much, everyone. Have a great day.
Bye.